Hi, and welcome back. Today I'll be doing my January wrap up. Let's go see what I read. All right. I read 11 books and I dropped zero. Yes, I know. But I think that just mostly has to do with the fact that I read some really great books, like starting off Out of Love. It's basically starts at the end of a relationship. With the main lead and yeah, the only POV, um, being like, "Man, this is the last time I'm ever gonna see him." Like, they've broken up. She's got the last of his stuff all packed up, and he's coming to get it. And it's kind of just like watching dominoes fall in reverse as she kind of does this back spiral of all the events that kind of led to this. How their relationship strained and then built together, and then how they even first met, and her being like, I really like this guy. And it leaves you with a new kind of heartbreak of you knowing this relationship's not going to work out, and yet you learning how they came together and the potential that their relationship had, if only, like, if only, if only, if only. Like, you see all these like pivotal points in their relationship that ultimately lead to them breaking up. um but at the start you're just kind of like, oh, they could be so good together, they could be so good for each other, but in the end, it eventually there's gonna be a split in the road, and they're gonna take the wrong turn, and it leaves you with a new kind of heartbreak. I would definitely recommend it. It can be pretty slow paced. It did take me a minute to finish this book. There's a little bit of spice, they get hot and heavy here and there, but like it's not really a smutty book. um but she does struggle with her queer identity as a bisexual woman who has not been with a woman, and it's just like, man, I totally get you, because like bi legitimacy is like the dumbest thing, and yet every struggle everyone ever has to deal with. Like, you don't have to legitimize your identity, like there's no requirements, it's just, do you identify as that? Cool, then that's probably your identity. But being queer, it's so much fun trying to figure yourself out in a world that constantly is trying to poke holes into who you are as a person. Yay! Anyways, uh, but I definitely enjoyed reading about her struggle. I definitely enjoyed, you know, reading and knowing the person that she becomes as she struggles to become that person. And it's a new type of feeling to know where this is all going to end and seeing how it all began. Just crazy, just wild. But still good book, still good. Next book I read was Give and Take: Revolutionary Approach to Success. And this is another book where it's like, "Oh, look, you're a decent person. Ta-da! The world works out for you." But it basically talks about, people who are takers, people who are givers, people who are matchers. They give as much as they receive. And how there's the misconception that you have to be a taker to succeed. That if all you do is give, then you're a pushover and a sucker. And it's like, well, there's a difference between being a giver and being taken advantage of. And I love how it gives like real life testimonies on, being a giver. Oh, look, it's actually a good thing. It actually works out for you. That being a taker is something that only gives you short-term success. It doesn't give you long-term success. And being a giver does give you, like, being a giver can sometimes be like a long bet, that things are going to be working out, because, immediately it can seem like you have little, but over time, as people like resonate with you being a giver, like they they give back, like gratitude and giving, like these are two things that tend to go hand in hand, because if you're someone who gives without expecting anything in return, it's amazing what you can get in return. It's that strange little world that you kind of have to live with this contradictory that you should give without expecting anything, but know that you'll probably receive something, but don't expect it. But even being a matcher can leave you to be, pretty, well off in terms of being a decent person. But, ultimately being a giver is where it's at. Definitely enjoyed it. It could be kind of slow paced, and but luckily, like none of the stories seem repetitive or redundant. Like everyone's stories, while some of them do overlap, they all offer some little tidbit of their own of why it's a good thing to be a giver. Next, I read "Girls Can Kiss Now" essays, and it's it's basically the author's queer journey of growing up in the 90s and early 2000s and trying to figure out your queer identity, let alone your identity in this fun, crazy world that we live in. I am of similar age, so I totally like resonated with a lot of her struggle and trying to figure out herself and her, being queer. Uh, and I really loved it. It made me laugh. It made me tear up a little. Like it was a fun read. And even though like it was an essay, it felt more like a mini memoir because I think she's still pretty young. Still a lot more to be written, but it was definitely a fun read, and I definitely want to collect it. um, just so you know, most of the books I read are actually audiobooks, and I love to buy the physical copy of the audiobooks that I get. Well, I love to buy like the physical copy of an audiobook that I loved and then like having it on my shelf like a trophy. Like, that doesn't make me sound like a serial killer. Ah. Anyways, uh, next book I read was "Give a Shit, Do Better, Live Better, Save the Planet." Okay, I know that the title is aggressive, but it's actually like she's really nice. Um, she talks about her own personal journey to wanting to be more eco-friendly and wanting to do better by the planet. And even though some some of her statements can be a bit aggressive, like, "Oh my god, just do it." Like most of the time she's like, "Do what you can," like it's hard. It's hard being alive out there. Um and the individual is not the real problem in being, trying to do right by the planet. But we can still do what we can and do what you can, where you can, we're not all capable of going vegan or 100% no waste life, because it's hard to live like that. Not everyone has time to make all the eco-friendly changes, and it you know uh, sorry, got the sleepies there. uh and just do what you can where you can. And she offers like a lot of even her own like recipes for like at home cleaners, and then like vegetarian foods to consider. Just doing what you can where you can. And I keep saying that. I'll do better. Anyways, good read. Definitely, I feel like it can be a good first step for someone who wants to start like looking into doing what they can. Just because like she's very considerate and she tries to offer as much information as she possibly can, which is really nice. All right. Next, I read Love and Other Disasters, and this book was a wild, fun ride. I definitely liked it. It's a good book, but basically, it follows our two main leads. One is bisexual and one is non-binary. So yay, queers. But they both go on to this cooking show for their own reasons, and of course, shenanigans and falling in love and doki doki all over the place. It's a fun read for the most part. It can address some heavy topics, but it doesn't really like make it too dark. It's still pretty lighthearted, I think, throughout the book. Each person is still, has their own struggles, but I don't feel like they make it any darker than it necessary. Like, it's a rom-com and a little smutty, so be ready for that. It's a good read. I definitely enjoyed it. It's fun, um, them being in the kitchen and talking about food, and then, them bringing food into the bedroom. Anyways, good read. Definitely enjoyed it. Might check out the author, see what else they got going on. All right. Next, I read How Not to Die: Discover the Food Scientifically Proven to Prevent and Reverse Disease. Okay. Title: pretentious. But this guy also super cool. Do what you can where you can. He can get a little very excited about just like how amazing like plant-based food can be for you. Like a plant-based diet, like it's like, oh my gosh, the meat industry has been lying to me for years, including the dairy industry. Yeah. But basically, he proves like with oh, wrong button. But with double blind studies, just how amazing like certain foods can be for you. And I really vibe with that. Like I love science, I love food, and I love it when people conduct like really good studies. Double blind studies. And it just it shows time and time again, like, oh look, just add some fruits and veggies to your diet. It does more good than harm. um but he's also like, I get it, it's okay that you don't have to go like all or nothing. Because he talks about his own, like, how he loves Tabasco, and even though he could probably make a healthier at home version himself of Tabasco, it's delicious and he loves it. So it's okay to have exceptions when it comes to your diet. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. You just be like, oh, I don't eat that. It's like, oh well, that's the exception, because if you're pretty solid in your own choices, then you don't mind if someone starts questioning you about them, because it's like, yeah, no, that, like, I thought you're vegetarian. It's like, well, it's my mom's chicken soup. An exception. Like, how can I say no to my mom's chicken soup? Um, because in reality, the problem with meat eating is just that it's not that healthy for you, and it's not that eco-friendly, and um it's not like, I mean, we could dive into the whole most people's like reasoning behind vegetarianism, but like, that aside, it's not that eco-friendly and it's not that healthy for you. So maybe just cut back like a little is all really they're saying. And maybe like add some more fruits and veggies is all. It's not telling you go vegan or go home. It's just like showing you like, hey, maybe just cut back a little. And these are the reasons why. It doesn't really try to appeal to like your heartstrings like PETA does. Which, it's whatever, but I don't know. It's just when you try to guilt trip people into things, that doesn't really work. But like, I love how he's like, "Hey, look, like, let's just chat. No one's attacking anyone. I'm just, providing you information, and because I want you to make, whatever best choices for yourself by providing you with all the information you need to do so." And I really love that they're so considerate and provide so much information on the matter. Um, Definitely gonna add it to like my favorite reads, but be ready for him to bring up turmeric a lot. I kind of wanted to incorporate it in my diet after like him talking about it so much, but like, he'll come at me. But I don't like the taste, and most people talk about how they don't like the taste either. Um, and hey, I eat a bunch of other healthy stuff. Do what you can. um, but yeah, just be ready. He's gonna talk about turmeric, and he's gonna be really excited. Like, I feel like that's the only part of like the book where he's like, "Please eat turmeric," because most of the time he's just like, "Oh my gosh, can you believe how healthy this is for you?" Like, whoa. But he does do a push. He does genuinely do a push for turmeric, and I can see why he does. He provides you the reasoning why. But yeah. Anyways, the next book I read, Kill Anything That Moves: The Real American War in Vietnam. And this did not feel appropriate to give like a rating in hearts, because it's so dark. And but like it's only dark because it's true, and like you really get to see, because like I don't know about you, but I'm an American that was barely taught anything about any war that happened past like the Civil War and the World Wars. Like, of course, these things were not explained to me. They were so heavily glossed over, and I got to learn why. Uh, but be ready, like, it dives into it. It takes actual accounts from soldiers. It, you know, combs over reports, and it tells you exactly what happened. And it is dark, it is gruesome, and it is like, oh my God. Um, So while I do advocate for people to learn their history, because especially in America, we are not provided our history, do not go into this book lighthearted. Be ready if you're going to read this. It is good. It is a good book. It provides you the information about the Vietnam War. Like you will come to understand the Vietnam War reading this and just why it was so tragic. But it it is whew, it is detailed. It is dark. So be ready if you do want to read this. I definitely recommend it. But like if like oh the Vietnam War, guys, it's like, oh yeah. Anywho. Daring greatly. How the courage to be vulnerable transforms the way we live, love, parent, and lead. This book was inspiring. Its title, Daring Greatly, comes from one of Theodore Roosevelt's speeches where he goes and talks about how if you wait to be ready, you tend to lose what you're even fighting for. Like if you keep waiting for perfection, what you're seeking perfection for in the first place might just be gone. Because there's no such thing as perfection. There's no such thing as being like 100% ready for anything, that you have to just, go into the fight muddy and bloody and bruised, but come out, nonetheless on the other side of it. But doing it nonetheless, to dare greatly, to do it despite it all, and to be vulnerable. It's to trust somebody with a like knife to your throat, Um, it's scary, but it's the only way to truly like live or love. And you get to hear stories from actual people, and the author dives into her research on the amazingness that comes with being vulnerable. And it's really inspiring. Like I love this book. I it it's a really good book if you just want to learn how to be a little more open to the people that you care about, because it's for them that you really want to try to be more vulnerable for, because that's the only way you can really connect with them and ensure that that bond is solid. uh because it can be really hard out there in this world that constantly tells you that you need to put walls up, but then it's like, how do you let the people you care about in? And you know that struggle. Yeah, definitely recommend that. Next, I read Strong Female Character. If you were diagnosed with late term autism as a woman, congratulations. You might enjoy this book. I did. Um, because, oh my gosh, the struggle, like, it takes a while for it to settle in your bones to realize, like, oh my gosh, I might be autistic. And then once it does, you just kind of left with this bitter feeling of like, if only I had known. Like, how different would my life have been if I had just known? Like, this, it's just like part of me that's always been there. I just didn't realize it and had accommodated it. I had resources for it. Um, eh, you get to follow their journey. It's a memoir, and it follows her journey of realizing she's autistic and like the struggles of her life, like going through it and like coming into herself as a full person and accepting herself, right? And doing the work on herself. And it made me laugh. It made me tear up a little, and I really related to a lot of what she was going through. And then like just being a woman in modern day and that fun struggle while also trying to struggle with the fact that you're trying to be in a male dominant industry and surprise, you're probably autistic. Ah, yay. Oh, wrong button. Ah, yay. um, but it was a good read. Note that she does talk about her struggle with like violent tendencies or violent outbreaks, I guess. Um, but for the most part, it's not that gruesome. Just like a light, you know, warning. Only because some people are a little squeamish when violence or blood is mentioned. Um, Also, possible murder. I almost forgot that's why I gave this a little, like, tag under my how much, like, blood and gruesome and violence should you expect? Um, Icon meter. Uh, but don't worry, she lives. Ah, like, how else could she have written this memoir? Yay. Um, I think that still counts as a no spoilers review, maybe? Uh, anyways, it's a good book. No, it does dive into some, dark topics, but like everything I guess works out. Since she wrote this book and is now I'm starting to question. Trying to explain and then not spoil this book. But good read. Good read. I'm gonna move on to the next one. Uh oh gosh. Hell Followed With Us. Okay, so this book has two POVs, but our main lead is trans and religious trauma. Yay! And our second lead is we don't get as many chapters, I think, of their POV, but there's still another POV in the book. Um, Actually, I think there's three POVs. But I think the third one, like, barely chimes in. But the second POV, our second lead, is autistic, and I think they handled like the, neurodivergency and queer like identities and topics and point of views like really well. But surprise, you also get put in a post-apocalyptic world. Like there's been a world-ending event. Yay! Don't mind me, just a little thirsty. Uh, but guess what? The world's ended, and uh, somehow we're still fighting and arguing over like identities. Yay! The world's just ended, so who really cares if I identify as something that you don't think is real? Yeah. But guess what? World Ending Event 2.0 about to be released also. So not only has the world ended once, it's about to end again. And does this book get dark? Like if you don't like body horror, I don't think you should probably read this book because now I have new fuel for my nightmares. Um Really good book, like great writing, like oh my gosh, great writing. It gets a little spicy, because they're teenagers, uh but nothing like major. It's still like, main focus of the plot is that the world's ending, and that it has ended, and yet somehow I'm the problem. um but yeah, uh good book, so scary, light, just like a little sprinkling of smut. uh But yeah, no, it's oh my gosh. We don't have drinking water, but you want to attack me for being queer? Sure, fine, go ahead, whatever. Yay. Anyways. Yeah, I don't know if I want to have this physical book because like it's a good book, but I don't know if I can recommend it because it's so scary. Uh, but it's a good book. So if you like scary, if you like body horror and you got some religious trauma to work through, then yeah, have fun. Anyways, last book of the month, Skin of the Sea. It is book one of the series, and I loved it. Like, I love reading world mythology and looking at other cultures. And, you know, this story follows Orisha and the Mami Wata, and it's so cool. I loved it. I loved how they brought like history into it, like the slave ships and the gods. Like, why didn't they do anything? It's really interesting. Like, I really loved it. There's only one POV, I think. Uh, don't don't quote me on that. But it's so good. It's so good. And I'm so excited for the second like book. I read the sequel, but then um did the thing again where Livy dropped a bunch of holds on me. So I'll get to it. I promise. I really loved it. It's one of like I hope like the next book's really good because I want to add like the series to like my favorite series of like like my favorite books that are series. Cuz sometimes like it doesn't end well, but like I hope it ends well. I hope it's really good cuz I really liked it. You meet our lead, Semi, who is struggling with who she is and who she was. And well, oh my gosh, I love it. She has to go on this adventure and you watch her walking this thin line because there's so much at stake and she learns so much about herself along the journey that just really helps her figure out herself. Um and even though the right thing or what you're supposed to do doesn't feel right or what you are supposed to do doesn't feel right, figuring out if that means you should or shouldn't do it. Like what is this gut feeling like? I don't want to, but like just me not wanting to mean that the choice is good or bad, Because sometimes it's either or, and knowing which is which, that even though you don't want to do this thing, is it something that you need to push through, or is it something that it's trying to tell you like don't do it? Uh, uh, but yeah, all these books were really good books. I definitely enjoyed them. Nothing really. Well, I mean, I can't really say I enjoyed uh Vietnam book, but still a good. The writing's really good, and the author does a really good job conveying the information to you. But it's dark. Definitely, all these were good books, and I recommend them. They are books that have you're interested in. I'd say go for it. Uh, but yeah, that was my January wrap up. And I know it's probably like a little late into the following month, but hey, I did it. um, and I really hope you guys enjoy these books too. If you read them, let me know. Or if you have read them, comment them down below and let me know your thoughts on them too. I love talking about books if you haven't been able to tell. And I hope to see y'all again next time. Bye.